If you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe to see more of our content. And also make sure to ring the bell if you actually want to see our content. Thanks, YouTube. If you really like what you see, you should know we did it all on a budget of thoughts and prayers. Just imagine what we can do with an actual budget. Become a patron of ours to find out. This week, I'm glad to add Victor to our list of rare tier patrons. And of course, thank you as always to all of our other patrons. If you'd like to support the channel at no additional cost to yourself, you can start with our affiliate link down in the description whenever you make a purchase over at TCG Player. By doing so, a portion of your total price will go towards supporting the channel at no additional cost to you. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the video. Hey everyone, it's Matt here, and welcome to another CommanderGuys gameplay video. This week we have a game featuring several new commanders, alongside an older commander who's seeing some play after its reprint in Double Masters. So let's not waste any more time and get into player introductions. First off this week, we have Grayson, bringing back Braids, Conjurer Adept. Grayson's deck is still Hug focused, but it's still looking to push its advantage by having the biggest threats to cheat in. And Grayson certainly accomplished that with an opening hand that includes Blightsteel Colossus, Windfall, Kira the Great Last Spinner, Howling Mine, Sol Ring, and a pair of islands. Next comes Danny, bringing back Silvar and Trynn. This is the same Silvar and Trynn deck from a few weeks back, but Danny asked me to mention that he also has a focus on using his humans to trigger aristocratic effects. Danny kept Read the Bones, Increasing Devotion, Champion of the Parish, Citywide Bust, Battlefield Forge, Inspiring Vantage, and a Swamp. Then comes Chris, playing Syr Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. Chris's Syr Gwyn deck has more of a focus on Knight Tribal than Danny's Syr Gwyn deck does, but it still runs a decent amount of equipment in an attempt to win through combat. Chris kept Single Combat, Wintermoor Commander, Fireborn Knight, Rakdos Signet, Godless Shrine, Orzhov Guildgate, and a Plains. Finally, we have Spencer, playing Rin and Seri Inseparable. Rin and Seri are a weird commander, which rewards you for running both Cats and Dogs main deck by giving you a plethora of tokens. But Spencer's build focuses much more on setting up an infinite combo with White Mane Lion to trigger various ETB damage dealing effects. Spencer kept Kazali Pride Mage, Generous Stray, Finale of Devastation, Fey Burrow Elder, Arcane Signet, Windbrisk Heights, and Clifftop Retreat. Grayson starts us off. He drops an island, and uses it to cast a Sol Ring. He then uses that to cast a Howling Mine, before passing off to Danny. Danny draws an additional card, and drops an untapped Inspiring Vantage. He casts a Champion of the Parish, and passes off to Chris. Chris draws an additional card, and drops a tapped Orzhov Guildgate. He then discards down at end step, and passes off. And then Spencer draws an extra card, and drops a Windbrisk Heights. He hides away a card, and then discards down as well, to close out round 1. Grayson draws 2, and drops an island. He casts a Font of Mythos, and passes off to Danny. Danny draws a total of 4. He drops a Battlefield Forge, and casts a Sol Ring, which he then uses to cast a Talisman of Indulgence. Finally, Danny moves to combat, and pings Grayson for 1, before discarding down and passing off. Chris draws his 4, and drops a mountain. He casts a Rakdos Signet, and oh boy, wouldn't you guess it, he has to discard down at end step. Spencer draws 4, and then drops a forest. He casts an Arcane Signet, and funnels it into a gamble. He uses the gamble to go and tutor up a card to hand, and then randomly discards a Clifftop Retreat, before intentionally discarding down to end his turn. Grayson draws 4, before dropping an island. He casts his commander Braids, and hey look, he has to discard as well. Danny puts a Path of Ancestry untapped with Braids' trigger, before drawing 4, and dropping a Swamp for turn. He pings himself to cast Trynn, which adds a counter to Champion of the Parish as it enters. Danny then mentions how he missequenced things, as he casts a Soul Warden, which adds yet another counter to the champion. Danny moves to combat and hits Chris for 3, before moving to end step and creating a 1/1 human from Trynn. That token causes him to gain a life from Soul Warden, while also adding a counter to Champion of the Parish. And finally, Danny passes off. Chris puts a Commander Sphere into play with Braids, before drawing 4 and dropping a mountain for turn. He casts Smitten Swordmaster, and follows it up with a Glass Slipper, which he immediately equips to the Swordmaster. Chris then moves to combat and swings the Swordmaster at Spencer, before passing off yet again. Spencer puts in an Oketra's Monument with Braids, before drawing 4 and dropping a Plains for turn. He casts Feyburrow Elder and creates a 1/1 warrior on that cast. Next comes a Khazali Pride Mage, which creates another 1/1 warrior, as Spencer passes off. And here's where we finally get to the reason for Grayson's deck. Grayson casually slides in a Blightsteel Colossus on his upkeep, before drawing 4 and dropping a Buried Ruins for turn. He casts a Lightning Greaves, and follows up with a Kira Great Glass Spinner. He moves to equip his Lightning Greaves to Blightsteel, as everyone realizes it's countered for the first time by Kira. He then moves to equip the Lightning Greaves again, and it finally sticks. Grayson then moves to combat, and swings Blightsteel at Danny. Danny double blocks with his token and Soul Warden, before taking a total of 9 Infect. And with that, Grayson passes off. Danny puts in a Plains with Braids' trigger, before drawing 4 and dropping an Exotic Orchard for turn. He then casts a Boros Signet as this happens.
You guys have to work together to figure this out. It's a hasty Blightsteel Colossus.
What's gonna work? Nothing.
Danny moves to combat and swings Trynn at Chris, before moving to end step, where he creates a 1/1 soldier and discards down. Chris cheats in Syr Conrad on his upkeep, before drawing 4 and dropping a Plains. He casts a single combat, and everyone chooses a creature they control before sacrificing the rest, and then become unable to cast creatures or planeswalker spells until the end of Chris's next turn. Syr Conrad triggers 8 times, and each of Chris's opponents takes 8 damage. Finally, Chris equips Conrad with Crystal Slipper and passes turn. Spencer draws 4 for turn. He casts a Chrome Mox, and exiles Reese with its imprint trigger. Next comes a Farseek, and Spencer goes to bring in a tapped Sacred Foundry with its effect. He then discards down at end step and passes off. Grayson draws 4 and drops an island for turn. He casts a Lotus Petal and follows it up with a Sword of Fire and Ice. Next comes a Commander Sphere, and then a Show and Tell. As Show and Tell resolves, Grayson puts in Alhamrit's Archive, Danny puts in a Verge Rangers, Chris puts in a Valiant Knight, and Spencer puts in an Impact Tremors. Grayson then moves to combat and swings Blightsteel at Chris. Chris blocks with Syr Conrad and takes 6 infect damage, as Grayson passes off. Danny draws 4 and drops a Plains for turn. He flashes back Increasing Devotion and creates a total of 10 1/1 humans, which adds a total of 10 +1/+1 counters to Champion of the Parish. Danny then moves to combat and swings 3 at Grayson, before discarding down at end step and passing off again. Chris draws 4 and shocks in a Godless Shrine. He casts Shining Armor and equips it to Valiant Knight as it ETBs. Chris then follows up with Whisper Silk Cloak, and equips it to his Knight as well, before passing off as the effect of single combat wears off. Spencer draws 4 and drops a Mountain for turn. He casts his Commander and creates a 1/1 soldier on that cast. Impact Tremors triggers twice and shocks each of his opponents, and then Spencer discards down at end step before passing off. Grayson draws 7 and drops the Temple of the False Gods for turn. He casts a Thought Vessel and follows it up with an Arcane Signet. Next comes an Archmage Ascension, and then Grayson moves to combat. He swings Blightsteel at Danny, who blocks with Champion of the Parish. The champion loses 11 +1/+1 counters, as Grayson puts a counter onto Ascension at end step, before passing off. Danny draws 4 and drops a Swamp for turn. He casts a Zathrid Necromancer and follows up with a Pitiless Plunderer, before remembering both of his counters for the champion. Danny then casts Teysa Karlov and puts another counter onto Champion, before leaving the card he scries with Path of Ancestry on top of his library. Danny then passes off, while forgetting that his tokens have both lifelink and vigilance. Chris draws 4 and drops a Plains for turn. He casts a Venerable Knight, and follows up with a Sky Knight Legionnaire. Chris then realizes he missequenced as he casts a Corpse Knight. And with nothing else to do on his turn, he passes off. And at Chris's end step, Spencer convokes to cast a Chord of Calling where X is 2. He goes to grab a white mane lion to the field, which pings each of his opponents, and bounces itself back to hand as it enters. And still before turn passes, Spencer recasts the white mane twice. And once the dust is settled, Spencer creates 2 1/1 dogs, 2 1/1 soldiers, pings his opponents 6 times, and ends up with white mane lion in hand. Spencer draws 4 for turn. He casts Mana Crypt, and then drops an Exotic Orchard. He then moves to combat and swings his 3 soldier tokens at Chris. Before damage, he activates Windbrisk Heights to effectively flash in a Phyrexian Altar, and in response, Grayson counters it with a hardcast Fierce Guardianship. It's worth noting that if Phyrexian Altar had resolved there, the game would now be over. Spencer would cast White Mane Lion and create 2 tokens on that cast. The tokens would enter and ping each of his opponents twice. Then the lion would enter and ping each of Spencer's opponents again, before bouncing itself back to hand. From there, Spencer would be able to sacrifice his 2 tokens to Phyrexian Altar to pay to cast White Mane Lion again and restart this loop. Chris then blocks and kills the human tokens, and in main 2, Spencer casts a Shamanic Revelation. He draws 4 cards and gains 4 life, before following up with a Dockside Extortionist. Spencer creates a 1/1 human on that cast, and then the Extortionist creates a total of 19 treasures, as each of his opponents remember the 2 damage from Impact Tremors. Spencer then claims he wins the game, and Danny asks him to step through the process, so Spencer sacrifices a treasure to cast White Mane Lion. On that cast, he creates both a soldier and a dog, while also shocking each of his opponents. The White Mane then ATBs, and each of his opponents is pinged again, as Spencer targets White Mane with its own ETB effect. In response to that trigger, Danny casts a Swords to Plowshares targeting White Mane, and in response to that, Spencer casts Teferi's Protection to phase out his board and stop his White Mane Lion from being exiled. And with his combo broken for the current turn, Spencer moves to end step and discards down, before passing off. Grayson draws 7, and then drops a Shrine of Forgotten Gods, before casting his own copy of Mana Crypt. He follows up with a Well of Ideas, and draws 4 cards as it enters. He then casts a Fleet Swallower, and equips it with Lightning Greaves. Next comes a Windfall, and as everyone discards their hands, and goes to draw 13, or 26 in Grayson's case, we'll be right back. After the wheel, Grayson moves to combat, and swings Blightsteel at Chris, while swinging Fleet Swallower at Danny. On that attack, he targets Danny with Fleet Swallower, who mills the top half of his library. Blocks then happen, and Chris blocks with his Knights, as Danny blocks with 6 of his Knight tokens. All of the Knights and Fleet Swallower die after damage. As Chris goes to 9 Infect, Danny gains 6 life, and also triggers Pitiless Plunderer and Xanthrid Necromancer 6 times. Those 2 sets of triggers are then doubled by Teysa, so Danny creates a total of 12 treasures and 12 2/2 zombies. Finally, Grayson puts a counter onto Archmage's Ascension at end step before passing off. Danny draws 5 and shocks in a Godless Shrine for turn. He casts his commander Silvar and then moves to combat. He swings 7 zombies at Grayson, and 5 zombies and 4 soldiers at Chris. Chris blocks the zombie with his Knight, and then damage happens, eliminating Grayson, as Danny gains 28 from lifelink. Also, a zombie token died, so Danny creates another 2 treasures from Pitiless Plunderer. In main 2, Danny casts an Angel of Glory's Rise. As it enters, he exiles all zombies, before returning all humans from his graveyard to the battlefield. Danny says this to Spencer,
"I will deny you this victory like you denied me many victories."
And then the following ETBs happen. Danny gains 10 from Soul Warden. He names Giants with Species Specialist to avoid decking himself. Jarina enters and he creates 2 1/1 soldiers, which causes him to gain 2 more life. Lava Brink Venturer enters, and Danny chooses Even. Champion of the Parish gains 13 +1/+1 counters. General Kudrow enters, and he exiles a total of 13 cards from Spencer and Chris's graveyards. Danny then casts Judith the Scourge Diva, and follows up with Luca Coppercoat Outcast. He upticks Luca, and exiles the top 3 cards of his library. There's a Reverent Hoplite among them, which Danny immediately casts. And as it enters, he goes to create a total of 16 more humans. And at this point, Spencer calls the game to a stop for this reason.
All you have to do is sacrifice all your humans and you win.
So between Zulaport Cutthroat, Judith, and Tace's doubling effect, Danny had more than enough humans to sacrifice down to Silvar to eliminate Chris immediately. He would then pass off and attempt to do the same to Spencer on his upkeep. Spencer and Chris each don't have interaction ready, so with lethal on board, they agree to scoop it up, ultimately meaning that Danny walks away with the win.